A lot going on in world politics, and of course, folks are trying to decide whether Biden should step down or not step down. And I know a lot of people are concerned about that. And of course, we had a whole conversation around race and race relations earlier today on the whole notion of World Edition and all along those lines. So I'm going to bring in my esteemed panelists, and we'll talk about a number of these issues. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I was going to mention on World addition that I didn't get to mention, but I'll mention it now as I bring in Rick and Jacoby and one of the founders of the network, Kim Calhoun, as well as Sasha Starr, is that, we act as if race is a new issue and all along those lines. So it even plays on the political front because I was actually reading about a person that I have talked to y'all about before, which is my schoolmate, Doc Rivers, and I was reading about his relationship because he's now divorced. But when he was in college at the time that I was in college, and that was in the early 80s, part of what was going on was that he was marrying a was dating a white lady in the campus, and they got a lot of racial putback, and definitely I think there was even some graffiti that was placed on her car and everything because people forget that Wisconsin also has some racist history as well. So that was part of their long-term relationship because they were together from the 80s till the year the like late uh, 2010s or 2019. So I think they were together for almost 40 years. But definitely that's something that even Doc Rivers has talked about is this notion of race relations and how they can even be an issue in the 21st century and in the latter part of the 20th century as well. But people act as if it was only a 60s issue. But one of the things I would argue that it hasn't always been a 60s issue. And there can even be some things that are going on with what's happening with Trump and some of the ways that they are trying to play the black vote against each other and all along those lines. But yeah, it was just fascinating reading that and remembering that because I remember even going to college and seeing Coretta Scott King, and I got some pushback both from the African American students and the white students because I brought a young white lady to hear Coretta Scott King speak, and that was probably in the early 80s as well. And I do remember that pushback that I got when I was there from both sides of the aisle, both my fellow African American students as well as some of the European students as well. So people act as if this is not an issue in the modern day context. But Doc Rivers is a well-known coach, coaching now for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he can even tell you he dealt with that at the time that we were in school and everything. So your thoughts around that, Rick? Because I was just
Well,
reading
so
some of
so
those issues.
Doc Rivers is a character played by Lawrence Fishburne in the series Clipped, a brand new series, because years after all that happened,
Mhm.
he got hired by Donald Sterling,
Right.
a weirdo, racist, very rich guy, just a lunatic who owned the LA Clippers, which the same year I think they hired him, uh, the whole he had doc frickin' what did Sterling was forced to sell the Clippers because of his racism,
Mhm.
and you can watch the whole thing play out, and it's ridiculous because um, Donald Sterling is a crazy person,
Yeah. And there are
and
other crazy, and there are
he's
other
played
crazy
by
people out
Ed
there.
O'Neill from Modern Family, and Al Bundy.
Mhm. And there are a lot of other crazy people out there. Some people would say that Donald Trump is trying to play toward the divide that goes on, whether it's race divides or gender divides or a number of other divides. And I did see, and I don't know whether Jacoby has seen this, that there is a spike. They're saying that there is a spike among young African Americans under the age of 50 that are actually considering voting for Trump and all along those lines. So there have been some studies around that. So, Jacoby, have you seen some similar kind of studies where they've been talking about that there might be an exodus among some of our young African Americans, particularly those that are under 50?
I've heard that, yeah, I mean, there may be a few here and there. The racial divide is going to be interesting this year. The older individuals are sticking with Biden. The Black Caucus actually had a meeting with them today, and they decided that they're going to stick with Biden. However, I don't know how it's going to pan out over the next week or so. That's where the big whatever happens is going to happen over the next week. Either Biden steps down and they replace him, or you know something's going to happen over the next week. And yes, the there are some younger black individuals that are deciding to go with Trump. However, Trump's uh, or the Republican outreach for the black community has been pretty porous, pretty porous.
I mean, the outreach events he had, it turned out some of them turned out to be like the ones he had in 2020, where the spontaneous, rejoicing of black people in a restaurant around Trump turned out they were hired actors.
Of course. I
Well,
mean,
we got-
everybody.
hey,
Hello, nice
Steve.
try.
Hi. Look at
I'm
you,
about to-
Mr. President. How
I
you
have to run.
doing?
Good. I have to run to a council meeting, but I'm so sorry, guys. It's just been crazy. But I wanted to give my intake just on what I've been hearing out there. But based on sources that I've spoken to, very close to the president, he will not be standing down in this election. He's going to stay in the election. And I think, unfortunately, this is going to have very negative impacts, at least speaking for myself in North Carolina, in the governor's race, because I think if Biden is a nominee, I think Mark Robinson will have an advantage because there could be a significant bump up for Trump. So I think we need to start preparing ourselves for a Trump governorship, Mark Robinson governorship. But I don't think it'll happen, but it's going to make it harder for Josh Stein. I think Biden does a lot of favors down the ballot if they get someone else. The reality, though, unfortunately, is that I don't think it can be anyone other than Vice President Harris, because the problem is if they don't pick the vice president, it's going to just create all kinds of turmoil in terms of not picking a woman of color. I've heard rumors about Harris and Buttigieg, whom I actually have always liked, the Secretary of Transportation, former mayor of South Bend, and presidential candidate. But all eyes are, I don't think Biden's going to step down. I don't think, and I want to hear from Sasha Starr and also Kimberly, and everybody. But I think also the only way they can get rid of him is the 25th, which would be invoked by the cabinet. And I doubt the cabinet will do that. So that's all I know. We'll talk more about this on World Edition, and then I'll be on Thursday, and then.
Are you aware that Jill Biden is doing, I guess, part of the campaign tour this week? I heard rumors she might be heading this way. Are you aware of that?
I've heard she was in Wilmington a few days ago. I think yesterday.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, I know it's the value of my pictures of Biden. All these pictures that have Biden's going down by the hour. So.
I would never say that. He was a president. And, this is what I say, if say he died tomorrow, for God forbid, that didn't change the value of your meeting with him.
No, I know.
So,
I just want to hear from everyone on the panel before I head out to my city meeting. But let's start with Sasha Starr. He's been there quietly, and then go to Rick. Sorry. And Sasha, real quickly, your take, and then we're going to go to Rick and Jatovi, and then.
I don't like to be interrupted, and I also don't like to interrupt other people. That's why I'm sort of waiting for my line to come up.
It's your
now. Remember election 2020? Did you remember Biden go out and have rallies and meetings or so on? He was in his basement for most of the campaign. And of course, during the COVID time, it could be justified. Not completely, but still somehow. During his presidency, he was, he was covered by his staff. They didn't say much about him. He said a minimum, whatever somebody can say in 4 years. And it seems to me now that it's not that he is sort of quiet guy or he doesn't like public attention. Like strange, the president of the United States doesn't like public attention. If you compare it to Trump, for example, it doesn't bode well. However, now is a crucial time. With Biden, election is lost, and not just presidential election. All democratic structure will be taken apart. Governorships, House, Senate, everything will go down the drain. And I don't understand why Biden, being 81 years old and having distinguished career, and he could go to the history as the very effective president, vice president, and president. And when his time came up, he dutifully recognized it and gave up floor to his vice president, Kamala Harris, and who is, in my opinion, is by far more capable than Joe Biden. And not even now, even 4 years ago, I believe that she's much more capable person to be a president than Joe Biden. But the time is now.
That's a really great point, Sasha. I want to go to Rick and Jacoby.
So in 1944, Americans voted for FDR, and I haven't read any history about the time, but I feel like they were voting for a guy they knew was not going to make it through the next 4 years. And indeed, he was dead within 2 months of being starting his fourth term as president. Right. That's thing one. Thing two is a question for you, which is, has there been any turnover among Biden's campaign staff? Because the whole debate thing was not just Biden's fault. It was his staff for letting it play out the way it did. And
so what the staff should have done, Rick, explain. So his staff should have go out to New York Times and Wall Street Journal and say that he's senile and he's mumbling and he cannot put...
Well, they didn't have to agree to the debate in June in the first place.
But I think the point of the debate was to figure out once and for all whether he's capable to have a second term or not. So the answer is not.
If you're his people, that's not an experiment you want to be performed if he is that inarticulate at 9 p.m.
Hold on, but if they wouldn't do the debate and he is senile and he can put two words together, so he would run unopposed into the August convention, and obviously he would be selected president. And then what? Then you're taking absolutely incapable old man to the election, which he obviously will lose, and the governorship will be lost, and everything else. Why would you?
We don't know that he will lose because the polls don't poll normal people anymore. Regular people say "F you" when they get asked to take a poll on the phone.
I'm going to leave with my final take before I head out. But here's I want to follow up on what Sasha Starr said. We have to realize, first of all, that President Biden in 2020, it wasn't like, here's the irony. He was actually cast out to not have any chance. And what saved him was the establishment Democrats, if you remember, that came in and said, we don't want Bernie Sanders to be the nominee. They backed Biden, Clyburn supported Biden, and he won. In this case, it's ironic that he's not listening to the very same party establishment that brought him into power as the president of the United States. They're saying, we don't want you in the White House. This isn't, the Biden family's making a mistake. This isn't about Joe Biden. This is about the people he represents. The millions and millions of Americans that depend on a president, a commander-in-chief, the Democrats that he represents, the minorities, the businesses. And the bottom line is he has no option at this point but to stand down. But he's not going to stand down. And so that means that we have to get ready for Donald Trump being reelected president of the United States. And as I said, North Carolina, I'm afraid that Josh Stein, the attorney general, is at risk of losing this governor's race. If I were Stein, if Biden doesn't stand down, he's going to have to change up his campaign or he's not going to be the governor of North Carolina. And God knows, if Mark Robinson, I know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to get the hell out of here. But
I'm
anyway,
leaving the country, so we're good.
This is the man who said we need a good killing and that he would kill woke people, and we need a good killing. Why would you, as a gubernatorial candidate? I got to run.
I'll have to play that.
Just one question. Isn't it true? Just one question. Isn't it true that if his staff can agree to invoke the Article 25, I believe, and to just take him out of his position due to his health, so that would work out, wouldn't it?
No, it would be scandalous. It's never happened.
Yeah, it's scandal, but it's better scandal than to go into election with Joe Biden. You know what? I'll give you a chance. Okay, Joe Biden, because of the polls, perhaps he can win election. Let's see he wins election. Can he sustain the presidential duties for 4 more years? It's impossible.
Then he resigns, and you got Kamala Harris, which means she should be very much out front doing a ton of political appearances and make sure her answers are less convoluted than some of the answers. Like Kim, you saw her give an answer that really pissed you off at some point, but get her out there giving short, punchy answers and saying, I believe in Joe, but if something happens to Joe, I'm right here and I'm good.
And I'm committed.
Toby, you're
And
muted.
I'm willing. Am I still muted?
No, Chovy is the next time he talks.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jacoby. Sorry.
I was just gonna say a lot of what was said in terms of the down ballot stuff. I know Steve was talking about Robinson winning over Stein. I doubt that's going to happen because of the horrible outreach to the Black community and how horrible Robinson's view within the Black community is. And the reason I'm pointing to the Black community, Steve didn't want to say it, but I will. Who saved Joe Biden was the Black community in South Carolina.
Oh yeah,
stood up for Joe Biden. It wasn't the fact that Bernie Sanders this, Bernie Sanders that, and Jim Clyburn is part of the Black caucus. He was. I don't know why we're not. Why this is where the whole honesty and context comes into play, and this is why, truthfully, yes, Biden should step down. There is no question about it. It would be great if he did. However, if he doesn't, he still has a shot. But the big thing is, Kamala Harris has to be there, because the reason Kamala Harris has to be there is because, again, the Black community is the one that will save democracy, as they did in 2020, because it was the Black women's vote who actually pushed over Joe Biden over any other vote, because white women actually went for Trump. A lot of white men went for Trump, but it was the minorities in the Black community that actually pushed Biden through. So again, if Biden were to step down, especially over the next week, you can roll out Kamala Harris. And if you do, that is going to be a huge enthusiastic boon for the Democrat Party, and that will affect the down ballot. And don't get me wrong, yes, with Biden standing in, that's going to harm the down ballot on many of the elections. I disagree that it's going to harm the ballot in North Carolina, because, again, Mark Robinson is really, really a horrendous candidate. He's Herschel Walker come again, and Herschel Walker was horrible when he tried to run. So it's just a matter of right now, yeah, if Biden steps down, Kamala Harris has to come in. And yes, the Democrat Party would win.
Here's a story I just seen. 3 days ago, Kamala Harris spoke at Essence Fest, and she gave like a half-hour interview on stage, only mentioned Biden once.
She was just in Vegas. They actually just showed her doing a rally in Vegas right now.
Rick, in your theory is that Joe Biden has to go for election,
Explain if
win election, beat Trump, win election, become president-elected, and then resign by introducing Kamala Harris and resigning, and so she's becoming president. So you believe that if he will resign now and Kamala Harris will go on election against Trump, she has no chances, but Biden does. So
right now they're polling equally, but you can't trust polls because polls are contaminated by too many crazy people.
Okay, so, not crazy. So you still believe that, therefore, Biden has more chances to beat Trump than Kamala Harris?
I think I don't know that you can tell the difference between them.
But this is a major advantage for Democrats now to get Kamala Harris, who is 20-some years younger than Trump. So now they can question Trump's health and possibility to run the United States for 4 years. Now they can drum up all his convictions, the felon, the loss of impeachments, the horrendous rapes, and just everything, because Biden can't do it, It's all this fact that every idiot knows, and Biden can't pronounce these words properly. That's a problem.
And Sasha, you are spot on with that analysis right there. Because it doesn't matter the debate being bad. It doesn't matter the excuses and everything. It doesn't matter that they're talking about this the individual who went to the White House over the past what was it, Alzheimer's doctor that came in. Not to mention he was working on a medical, well, a bill around medicine that dealt with Alzheimer's. But that doesn't matter because what they saw in the debate, it instilled every fear that they had that he's old. And because he's old, it doesn't matter. If the man trips and it's an honest trip that somebody tripped him, they're going to say, oh, well, he tripped because he is old. So the fact of the matter is that old piece is going to be rerun over and over and over. And at some point, yeah, you're going to get some sympathetic people saying, well, all you can say is he's old, and so I'll swing back to Biden. But for the most part, people are still going to go away from him just because he's old, which is sad. So, yeah, if you drop in Kamala Harris,
Fortunately,
I think Kamala Harris is the champion for the ongoing campaign. Even to say, okay, Biden's going to stay around to consult her and to be, you know, a mentor for her, I think would be, you know, she doesn't need one, but I think it would give people a lot of comfort. But I want to correct a few things. First off, it was a neurologist. Okay. He is not a quote unquote expert just in Parkinson's. He is a neurologist at Walter Reed Military Hospital. Okay, folks, that's who they bring in to see the president usually, you know, is somebody from the military hospital. I know some of this because a friend of mine's father used to be the president's doctor. So I've learned a lot just listening, but don't gaslight something that isn't real and speculate, which is what the Republicans are probably best at. I don't mean to be putting them down or insulting them, but that's all they're doing here right now is gaslighting and speculating off of the fact that a neurologist. Now, we have seen Biden walk a little strange, they've actually made fun of him. He could have a spine problem like I do. And you know what? When my neurologist sees me, guess what? I walk just fine. My arms move just fine. Doesn't mean I have Parkinson's because I'm seeing a guy who wrote a paper, and that's all this guy did. This guy wrote a paper on Parkinson's. So immediately they say he's a Parkinson's specialist, which we don't know how many people he's treated, but all neurologists treat a lot of things from the brain down to the bottom of your spine. That's what they do.
It's not a question of whatever he's ill with, whether it's one problem or another problem, maybe the third problem. I remember many years ago, I had a lawyer who loved, when there is a very difficult situation, he always used to say there is a two bullets syndrome. What he explained is, let's say one bullet hit your head and another one your heart, okay? So even if you did a perfect operation and you could get this bullet from your brain, but it doesn't matter because you would die from the bullet that hit your heart, and vice versa. Even if you could relieve and get this bullet out of your heart, but you are dead anyway because of this hit your head. So it doesn't matter if the man can't walk, the man can't talk. So it doesn't matter what cures this problem, but you have that problem. In 3 months, you will have yet another problem. The man is just plainly old. He may live until 90, maybe even 110. It could be, but not as a president of the United States. He can be living and cherished by his wife and his children and so on, and God bless him, but not as president of the United States.
I agree.
Let's talk about what he actually did. Hold on 1 sec. So I believe, unlike Trump's doctors, I believe Biden's doctors, and they say that he has neuropathy in his feet, which is pins and needles all the time. So if he walks a little shufflingly, it's because his feet are semi-numb. And that's why he gets like neuroconsults for that.
Okay, God, we covered that. Now he cannot talk.
Well,
So doctors explain he cannot talk well because he's a dumb or he's numb or he's, I don't know.
again, we're talking about things again that don't really matter. Everybody believes that the man is old and can't do it, and that's the sad part. Regardless if he can, the belief.
Can I ask a question? I want to know. Please don't take this wrong. Jacoby's young and smart and everything. So pretend he's the president right now, okay? And he was suffering from some neurological problem, but he's young, he's smart, he's led this country through a hard time of cleaning up after one of the biggest disasters of this country next to 9/11, which was the pandemic, which killed millions of innocent people. He has lifted us up and gotten us through a lot. And all of a sudden, he starts having some neurological problems, can't speak, his arms shaking, things, it's just questionable. And he starts seeing a doctor. Would we as a country say he's done for because he's got neurological problems?
Yes.
Election is
The
all
reason
about
being,
the future. It's not about the past. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for everything what you've done, but your time is up.
the reason being,
That's why I asked that question.
They would say that because the biggest fear in that situation is that, there's some neurological damage with this individual. That is our big fear, and you're not telling us. So now that he's instilled that big fear, regardless of him being young or old, that big fear is what's sticking with people and what's deterring people. It's the messaging that the Republican Party can get away with. Regardless of whatever Donald Trump says, that's baked in the cake right now. It doesn't. And if Biden were to have just if he would have shown up and had a semblance of, just being just like he was at his campaign rally right afterwards, showing a little strength, talking with a little purpose, or having just a little more oomph in what he was actually trying to get across without sounding as confused as he did, he would have walked away and wiped the floor clean, and we would have been talking about Trump.
But hold on a second, Jacoby, just hold on a second, just really quick along those same lines. I just looked it up. There were several presidents that have had health issues, and they actually stayed in office, to answer your question, Kim, because Dwight Eisenhower actually was the 34th president at the age of 62, and he actually suffered from both Crohn's disease and several heart attacks and a stroke during his presidency. And even John F. Kennedy had Addison's disease, which is a rare condition.
It was covered up. It was hidden from the public.
Again,
but even Ronald Reagan had diseases as well. He had cancer, he had arthritis, and some people said that he might have even had signs of dementia during the latter part of his campaign and everything. So, matter of fact, Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 1994 and everything. So it was shortly after he got out of office, but there were signs even at the time he was in office.
What you described is happening during the presidency. So he was elected while he was in reasonably good health, and then something started to appear. So you don't fire him in the midterm, and you would allow him to finish his term, but you would not send him to the second term with such obvious problems. So right now it was hidden. Maybe he had all these problems for the last 2 years, maybe even 3 years, but we didn't know. You know what's not going to happen? I already see that started to happen, that the Republicans, they will bring all the Democratic functionaries on the floor, and they will grill them. And it's not just Biden. Now it will become actually the whole Democratic Party cover them, and the press and media and everything else. And you know what? There will be a lot of people end up in jail.
Sasha, in that same respect, hold a second. In that same respect, because I've said it before on the show, I'll say it again, because I do have folks that were involved in a number of the police issues and everything. And as you know, Rick, Kamala Harris was not the most loved person in California. She was the top cop.
No, but
a number of liberals that are not the biggest fans, including liberals in California, of either the notion of a Kamala Harris presidency, because they are fearful of what she may do in the sense of being the top cop of the land.
But that gets her more votes on the other side. That being law and order and being harsh wins her more votes from the right than it loses her from the left.
Besides, it was her job. She was a prosecutor. So what you wanted to say, okay, you go away, okay, you're free to go, so on. She is a prosecutor. Her job was to prosecute people, and she did this job very well.
People have a mixed confusions about what a prosecutor should be. And I agree with you, Sasha, because you have to be tough. And as a woman, I think she had to be tougher. She would not have been taken so seriously and had accomplished so much. I got mad at her the way she answered that question the other day, but she accomplished a lot because she had no tolerance, zero tolerance. And people call that a bitch. I'm sorry, but they do. Because I had no tolerance in a lot of my jobs. I was very compassionate and kind, but I had to be stern, and people call you a bitch. But she and all no one could compare with what she did to clean it up because she was a woman and a black woman at that. So, I give her a lot of credit for getting where she is today is amazing feat. And we'll let Rick talk and then to Toby. But Sasha, you're right.
All right, but the situation is pretty much the same whether or not Biden withdraws before the election. If he withdraws before, it's Kamala Harris. If he doesn't and manages to get reelected, it's still Kamala Harris if Biden breaks down during his second term.
That's what I try to tell everybody. No matter who you're voting for, you're just voting for Kamala Harris. You're not really. And I think what bothers people is, this is what has concerned people, is the Democratic Party has been irresponsible and has not shown the responsibility that they should to go ahead and ask him to step down so that she can step into place, prepare for the role properly, and put a vice president in her place. That, I think, is what the problem is.
So, just a moment, a real Joe Biden, let's see if that situation would happen when he was even 2 years younger, maybe 3, he would definitely step down. In this now he becoming an old, stubborn Irish prick. That's all what he's doing. There is no way that he will win this election. Forget about Biden, forget about Harris, forget about all congressmen, all these representatives, governors. The Democratic Party is heading for a disaster. You must stop the train. That's really
oh my God, Sasha, that was hilarious. An old Irish hoot, I would have said, but a prick. Oh my God, that's funny. No, you're right. I think his stubbornness has stepped in. Toby, what do you got to say?
Oh, I was just going to say we're all missing the point again. Right now, Biden is giving a NATO speech. The only reason why it's being public or put up on every TV screen is because people are trying to figure out if he's going to mess up again because they're worried about his age. That is what is instilled in everybody's mind. It doesn't matter about the fact that, that Kamala Harris this, or it doesn't matter about anything like that. The problem is that the idea in people's minds that people are voting on is that this man is too old to do the job. And
he looks old, he acts old, and he talks old. It's a torture even to see him on TV or anywhere. It doesn't matter what he says and how he says, just to see him and listen to him.
I'm completely agreeing with you. That is what is being instilled. And they had hoped that at the debate, hey, he's going to sound quick-witted. He's going to come back. But he didn't. And because he didn't, guess what? Everybody now says he's way too old and past his prime. So installing somebody, because after the debate on both sides, both people were saying we should get new candidates. Trump shouldn't be there. But because Biden was so bad, we're only talking about Biden. That's why. Had he just shown up, we would have been talking so much about Trump. And now if you put somebody who can actually retort to Trump, it'd have been, all you got to do is, that's going to take down Trump and the Democrats win.
It seems to me what about the Democrats have a golden opportunity to put a fresh face, much younger than Donald Trump, and now she can mount a very credible attack against him personally. to say really what he is and who he is and so on. I think she has a fighting chance as a minimum to win this election against Trump. Biden has no chance whatsoever, especially if you're considering all the independent voters, all voters and all this, how you call them, swinging states or
Swing states, yeah.
So
that's
who do
your
we?
chance.
So who
There's a person
who
that's
should, wait,
older.
so all right. If she becomes the presidential candidate, who should they pick as her VP?
It doesn't matter.
Well, I've heard that they're talking about somebody from North Carolina. They've been talking about Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper is very relatively progressive, and he has definitely done
For sure not
well
a
from
woman.
North Carolina and everything. So Roy Cooper might be the person, and because he is not able to run for governor, his terms have expired. So they're definitely talking about that. And as Jacoby just said, even Pete Buttigieg is a possibility as well. But there is a person that's even older than Biden that a lot of the young people love, and he's actually made some comments about this whole comment because he's telling Biden to turn off the teleprompter and let the voters judge how well he's doing. Because for some reason, and he's even older than Biden, Bernie Sanders is loved by the young people. And I don't quite get it because he's even older than Biden and all along those lines. But he is seen as a hero to many of the young people, partially because of his kind of liberal politics and very progressive politics.
No, it's not liberal politics. He's loved because he talks with a passion. He can be his speech could be like really full of shit and really nonsense, but with a great passion and conviction, it makes a lot of sense. And some people agree, some people disagree. What Biden says, it doesn't matter what he says. The way he looks, the way he talks, it turns everybody down. I mean, I was on one party a couple of days ago, and there were people who were more Democrats leaning. They say that it's torture for them when they showed him on TV when he talks or walks or whatever. It's a torture. So it says it all.
So I've got a partial answer for who Harris needs to pick. According to this Forbes article, and it makes sense, she needs to pick a popular leader from a swing state so that they at least get that state. That could
that would be North Carolina and Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper was
yeah, but that's not a big state. It's like Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
Two women.
Yeah, that's true. But Josh Shapiro is a guy very popular, 59% approval. It nails down Pennsylvania.
If you're going to do that, you might as well go with Fetterman.
Fetterman's too much of a wild card, and he looks like Frankenstein. But
Well, yeah, he does have that going on with him. Just really quickly, and I'll bring back Toby's got something, but I do have to tease us just to get off politics for a minute, because as I mentioned
plus
earlier,
Fetterman has his own issues because he had a stroke, came back from a stroke, so the Republicans could attack him there. Like, how do we know?
Yep. Hey, Kim, I just have to tease you, and just really quickly, and we'll get back to politics, because when I was talking about my schoolmate, Doc Rivers, and everything along those lines, and he definitely had that, because he actually got involved in politics for a while, even part of as an advocate for Black Lives Matter and other conversations as a coach and everything. But when I was reading and remembering their courtship in the 80s, he did have the greatest pickup line of all times and everything. So I have to tease you about this, because it's very well documented. You can read it and everything. But when he met his wife, who actually she dated one of his co-players, co-athletes first and everything, she told him that his later wife would be very pretty if she would just wash her hair. So apparently that was his pickup line and everything. I think that's got to be one of the worst pickup lines that I've ever heard. So you're going to walk by somebody and tell them that they're very pretty, but they just need to wash their hair. Otherwise, that's the only thing holding them back. That's got to be the worst pickup line. Rick, you deal with pickup lines and everything. Would you agree that that's one of the worst pickup lines you've ever heard?
Well, there's such a thing as negging, where your first line is an insult to the woman who's used to being complimented, and then being insulted confuses her, which gives you an opening. But everybody's familiar with that technique now. I don't know if it all depends on how charming you are and how rich you are. Like Shaquille could say anything to a woman and she'd probably laugh, and sit down for a drink with him.
You mean Shaquille the basketball player or our Shaquille?
Our
Yeah, I
Shaquille.
mean,
Also,
I
that's
think it's
Shaquille.
all
They're both
in how the
charming.
pitch is. It's all in how the pitch is thrown. It really is. I mean, if you text me something like that, I'm probably going to not like you ever because I can't hear your tone. I can't see your body language. But, it is truly all about the pitch, right? It's not always exactly what the words are said. And this is what I tell people, be careful what you text because in your mind, you're saying it a certain way. And it doesn't come across that way. What is it?
We have a bunch of evidence that people are lousier at pitching in person because the number of babies is going down all over the world. And to make a baby, you need to meet somebody, impress them enough for somebody to get pregnant. And if we're doing everything online via typing and swiping, our in-person skills are crap. And
but speaking of that, and coming back to politics,
I agree with you.
Come back to the North Carolina politics because I'm still trying to figure out how you can be a successful candidate and basically tell women that they are the ones that are at problem because they didn't keep their skirts down, which is literally what Mark Robinson said to a conservative church, and he's actually said it to a Raleigh church as well. So he's trying to put the blame on the women, and that is the person that is running for lieutenant governor.
There were a lot of statements made about something else he said, and everyone took offense to it. And I went and watched the whole video, and that's not what he really said. So I have to be very careful when I haven't heard it all the way. He said that phrase, he said that exact phrase, but then there was something following it so people were cutting and pasting what he said, and it was supposedly very insulting to women. And I said, I'm just going to have to go look at this. I cannot believe a man is running for governor in our state. Well, I can in our state. Would insult women in that way. And so the words were precisely what people were saying he was saying. But if you listen to the premises of it and the post, what happened after, that's not what he meant. And that's what I think Rick and I were talking about here is that it's the pitch, right? But it's not about the texting, the cut and pasting and just hearing something. It's about seeing the whole phrase. It's about seeing the person and seeing.
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Kim. But in his case, it was said in more than one setting because I did hear part of the tape that he said in.
Yeah, but he did the same thing in more than one setting. But he did the whole premise. And when I listened to the whole premise, it wasn't that full insulting thing that everybody was accusing him about. It was in that one little part, and he repeated it a lot. And maybe somebody finally told, but I don't think he's learned from his lessons. But I will go take a look and to the whole thing. But he might be saying it's our fault for getting pregnant. But my thing is that you're taking away our access to birth control and contraceptions. And it's funny because people thought I was making that up, and David K. Johnson said it the other day in front of Adam, and Adam's like, "Oh my God, really? I didn't know that." No, you right-wing nut, you're not listening to your own party. And he's the one, who preaches, well, single moms need to stop, but I'm just saying we need to start listening to the whole things. People need to quit cut and pasting. I mean, I can show you an interview of Donald Trump, and over and over and over, he repeated the same answer. They asked him the same question over and over, asking him, please answer this question. And he just repeated. And then I looked at an interview from a year ago, same question, and he answered it exactly the same way over and over. The people will go, please focus on the answer to him. Look at me and focus. Sean Hannity, I'm sure he's playing back the interview or another interview he's doing with Donald. And I'm sure that they've trained him this time, but I watched the full hour of it from the other day. And Sean would ask him a question. Now, Sean loves Donald. Like, he's his biggest supporter. And Donald would start talking and just go way in left field. well, Mr. President, tell us more about this retribution. Let's make sure people understand, what do you really mean? And he would talk about everything else and, how people did him wrong, and then venture off into the banana republic. I don't know.
I just pulled up a bunch of polls of Stein versus Robinson. Stein's just a regular politician, a reasonable guy, but all the polls show that there are 15 to 20% of the people polled aren't familiar enough with either of them to make a choice.
That's funny. Stein is our state attorney general.
Right, but people don't pay attention. It's still 17 weeks to go, a third of a year until the election. So you have to ask, when people do start paying attention, if they ever do, 3 weeks before the election, which way are those, 1 vote in 5 going to break? And I assume that more will break towards Stein once people start realizing the crazy crap that Robinson says. Right now, you're not
true crazy. I mean, I was dumbified when I watched the full speech. Everyone was going around and they almost had me like ready to go over there and knock him in the head and say, "What is wrong with you?" But I finally sat down and watched the whole speech, and that's not what he said. I mean, he did say those words, but that's not what he meant. And I just think people, but here again, let me explain something to you. Roy Cooper, who's our governor now, very charismatic, very, out speaking to people all the time, very political. And when he went to run for governor, everybody knew who he was, everyone. And he was our state attorney general. And a good one. I have to say, I don't like him as a governor, but he did a good job as a state attorney general. Josh Stein is our state attorney general, and he rode on the coattails of Roy Cooper. I am going to say he rode on his coattails. And he doesn't get out there and engage with the people the same way Roy did. He is not a politician. He's not a good state attorney general either. But he is not, and I don't think he would make a good governor, and I think that's why a lot of people don't know who he is. Well, I think we have 2 poor choices. We have 2 very poor choices.
So if you look at both of them on a debate stage, I feel like if you don't listen to what Robinson says, he physically dominates Stein in that.
Yeah, he does.
Robinson's like what, 290 pounds, like just a big barrel of a man. And
Josh is my size. I've met him a couple of times, and like we could be, maybe he's a little taller than me, but when I put my heels on, we could be nose to nose, I think.
Yeah. So if you don't listen to the crazy crap that Robinson's saying, you want to be protected by this,
Yeah, this man physically is a presence. He really is. How he got on the ticket, I don't know. If he is honestly saying, but I'll see him talking to people and women in the churches, and then I hear people coming back and going, he said this, this, and this, and I'm like, I just don't think those women would be feeding that boy fried chicken and mashed potatoes and baked beans and come on in and let's have a party. I don't think so. If he was talking like that, I don't think that they would give him the warm Southern welcome that they're giving.
They give him the Southern welcome because he also did make that comment that some people deserve killing. That was his actual quote. He said some people deserve killing, and then he tried to put it as a comparison to Japan and other wars that we have been in.
I agree with him. Some people do deserve killing. I really do. I believe I shouldn't say that. That's going to come against me one day. But there are just some people that are just pure evil, and that's why we have the death penalty. But a lot of those people don't need to die either. So because a lot of them have been wrongfully accused, and we've proven that. But if somebody hurt my family member or killed somebody I loved, yeah, I'd probably feel like somebody needs killing. That's why we got a woodshed too, right?
Well, he says that, but he also doesn't really bring up that much other than other people bring it up, because he's very much been anti-abortion, but he actually helped pay for an abortion when he and his wife were a young couple, and he sometimes doesn't even bring that up in his
there are a lot of hypocrites in this state. A lot of hypocrites.
How many abortions did Trump cause to happen when he was, banging every, D-list model in Manhattan in the 80s?
Well, I mean, there's been no doubt that Trump is a playboy. And there's no doubt that he cheated on his wife with a porn star. And there's no doubt that he paid her. All of these are facts. And that's still okay with all his Christian supporters who say you have to forgive the sinner. So, I don't get it, because they certainly don't forgive a lot of people. They don't. They certainly throw a lot of stones at a lot of people in the community. But for some reason, this man has become their prophet. And we all know what happens to people in the Bible with false prophets, because he cannot carry through with the promises he's making. I don't think he can go and say and make it effective, no taxes on tips. I really don't think that a president can do that. I don't think the president can go in and tell everyone, okay, people, change all the tax processes that we have and policies, and we're not going to I think he can make all of those promises he wants, and it looks like a great high school president there.
But that's
But
part of what, Kim, that's part of
real.
what Mark Robinson did, because Mark Robinson was not even known till 6 years ago. Because at that time he was literally a 49-year-old furniture upholsterer, and I'm not knocking furniture upholstery. Furniture is a big part of North Carolina history and everything. And he was, like Rick, a Facebook person that liked to talk crap and talk from the conservative side. And definitely in 2018 is when he got some fame, because he literally became and spoke when they wanted a public input about a proposal to cancel an upcoming gun show on the city property. And Robinson's hometown was reeling from that massacre at Parkland, and he came up and gave a very passionate speech and everything. And even the Greensboro mayor at that time, Nancy Fawn, was saying we didn't want to sell guns, but he took the time out to come up there looking like, as you just said, Rick, a retired bouncer, bald and heavy set with his salt and pepper goatee and eyebrows. And then he got into a long, seemingly fancy speech. So he literally came out of nowhere and everything, and it's been in that kind of notion and everything, because he was not even known. And he spent the last decade building a Facebook following of 15,000 people by putting a black spin on the kind of conservative viewpoint and everything.
Let me tell you how funny AI is now, because that does most of the advertising with YouTube's, and the YouTube for Mark Robinson's are going up with his speeches. And of course, anytime there's any controversy about what any of these people say, it's going to be up there. But a national advisory is posted with his YouTube along with the commercials. But the national advisory and commercials about abortion health information, and it tells us what an abortion is. Now, this is with Mark Robinson's video.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of funny, because he is anti-abortion in the public, but he doesn't mind having.
Well, apparently he had some very interesting hobbies, and I'm not knocking him, because it is part of our Southern legacy. But apparently, at the time he was growing up, he got very big into professional wrestling. So he grew up with a lot of his family watching professional wrestling. And apparently, he had a love, and I had a associate of mine that had this similar love. But apparently, he had a love of trains and still has a love of trains. But apparently, he goes around looking for real live hunks of metal, which is those locomotives, because apparently he has got a affinity for understanding what's going on with the trains and everything, because apparently this is one of his passions and everything. And like I said, nothing wrong with that and everything. Because
I just thought it was funny that you're talking about about the abortion issue, and there's a national advisory that's kind of blogged to his video. But there's a lot to be said about all the information that we're given. And I think it's on overload, and everyone is taking everything that is said so viciously, vehemently wrong sometimes. I don't think they listen to the whole sentence. They just listen to a part of it and get offended. They don't put into perspective where this person is speaking. Like maybe they're speaking at the Catholic Church and they're Catholic, so they're speaking their language. So I'm going to tell you, everything they say is going to offend you outside of that church.
No, and that's what he did, because Upper Room, and Upper Room, it is a very, actually dated a woman from that church at one time, but it's a very conservative black church. So the fact that he made some of those comments at the Upper Room does not surprise me, because it is definitely a evangelical church, and it is very much a conservative church. It's more, like you said, more right wing in their politics and everything. So yeah.
Let's talk about abortion versus the polls that say that Biden is going to lose. There have been 6 special elections. since 2022 where states voted on whether people should have more reproductive rights or less. And even in conservative states, all 6 elections came out in favor of more reproductive rights. In 2024, abortion, I've read, is on the ballot in 11 more states. And regardless of what the polls say, people seem to turn out in favor of reproductive rights, which favors Biden over Trump.
Yeah, that'll be
You
interesting.
know,
We
they
give it a
do
wrap.
and they don't, because it's being done irresponsible. Right now, what they're saying is very irresponsible. And, you know, Trump has gone around preaching, you know, that women are having abortions after birth. He repeated this so much in the last 3 interviews, like over and over, you know, 8th month, 9 months after birth. I mean, when you watch him, he's like,
but does that win him votes or does that lose him votes?
so it makes him look stupid, because he did this interview with a woman and she tried to tell him, Trump, you know what, let's stop right there, because that is not happening. That is something that is illegal. You know, she spoke very like direct to him, and he didn't listen to her. After she finished trying to explain to him that that doesn't happen, less than 1% of the babies born are born with complications, and they die, you know, and sometimes it's better that they die, you know, a certain way, but it's less than 1%. But people are not carrying a baby 9 months. She tried to explain this to him, but he just kept yelling at her. And then she would ask him another question just to kind of, and he would start yelling it again. And so everybody's talking about Biden being off kilter in talking. Trump goes, now, and you know what? Somebody who has dementia can talk to you a little bit for a while, make look very normal. The words are very normal, very strong, very powerful, but he is way off kilter. He talks about only 3 things in every interview. I've watched a few interviews and it's repeating the same things over and over. It's like he's not even listening to the questions. Sean Hannity is interviewing him for the 2nd time after 2 weeks. And he did so today or yesterday. I guess he's playing it today. And I wanted to listen to it because he's trying to retract the interview he did 2 weeks ago, where Trump kept repeating and yelling this pregnancy thing, abortion thing. And he said today on his radio show, I just want everyone to hear President Trump's real view on abortion. So,
yeah, so I mean, what people are talking about, this Hannity thing will be Trump's, I think, first public appearance in 10 days. And people are wondering, now the Trump people say, oh, we're hanging back and we're letting Biden self-destruct. But
yeah.
Other people are saying, are you really, or are you hiding because your candidate is incompetent himself?
Well, the first interview he did with Sean Hannity was July 1st. It was after the debate. And Sean Hannity was so excited because he had this interview because, you know, he's his biggest fan, I think. And the interview was a shocker. I mean, I'll send it to you and you can watch it. It was, I'm surprised they even allowed it on access to people, but a lot of people
just really quickly, because I know we're winding down, but we'll find out very shortly. We'll find out very shortly whether his vice president will be. I know a lot of people are talking about, we can talk about this on Thursday, the notion of J.D. Vance or Burgum, but they seem to be the leading candidate because of their youth vote as well, this Vance character and everything. So we'll talk about that. And maybe we can talk about another popular person as well, because I was having a conversation earlier. And
I got to go. My wife is calling me.
And everything.
I'll send you some links.
Thank you.
Priscilla Presley was definitely mentioned in the news recently because she just did an appearance here in North Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about Miss Presley, because I think she was in Mooresville and all along those lines. But on that note, we're going to get on out of here and wrap up this show, and we'll have more world politics tomorrow on Thursday.